I really wanted to believe in magic and the other world, and not that I was deeply brought up in that, but it is a part of Irish culture. It is there, and you'd learn the different stories. Really longed to, like, I wish that was real. And then, of course, as you grow up, that starts to dissipate, and you stop believing that, and becomes every, teenage years and apathy for the world. But now I think shamanism have given me a way. It's a way into spirituality that can be not so heavy. It can be light and also fun and have the crack and wildness.
Hello and welcome back to this series following myself and my grey-bearded travel companion across Ireland trying to discover the essence of Irish spirituality. We are closing in on our final destination at the Hill of Ishnach to witness the largest fire festival and a gathering of pagans in Ireland. Before then, we have a truly interesting topic to discuss with you and a fascinating guest to add to the conversation as well. Kevin, what day are we on? I can't even remember anymore. Is this the 5th day or the 4th day?
I think it's a day. I think this is the fourth day.
Fourth day, yeah.
Halfway through, feeling good, feeling recharged and energized and tired.
So today's topic is Celtic Shamanism. Now, when I first say Celtic Shamanism, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Like, what do you think?
As we discussed yesterday, is Celtic a good term to use or a bad term to use?
Well, I think, again, for the sake of the internet, Celtic Shamanism is something that people recognize more than Gaelic Shamanism.
All right.
Now, I guess, like, a lot of people, when they first see it, it's actually a mixture, because, like, if you look at both words, like shamanism, the word shaman comes from Siberia, and the word Celtic obviously coming from, mainland Europe. And so it's like smacking these two words together. What are we saying,
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm looking forward to meeting and learning more. I'd say drums and fire and singing. Other than that, I'm coming in with an open mind and not sure exactly what to think yet.
Yeah, so our interview today is with a man named Connor, who I found on Instagram, who practices a form of shamanism here in Ireland and combines it with his knowledge of the Gaelic language, with his heritage here in Ireland. And it's definitely a unique mix. It's definitely not, from my brief conversations with him about it already, it's not something that's like he's trying to say it's 100% Irish shamanism, because Irish shamanism, Celtic shamanism, really didn't exist historically. We don't really know. But when we say shamanism, for the sake of people for argument, shamanism means entering some form of altered state of consciousness to commune with the spirits of the world or of the other worlds in order to prophesize, in order to heal, in order to receive visions. So this is typically what shamanism falls under.
Yeah, and that definitely was part of the old religion here.
Right.
So yeah, is it shamanism or is it just trance work? Who knows?
Yeah, well, I think again, when we're looking at terminology such as Celtic and shaman, it's catch-all terms that we're using now. That wasn't my choice. I didn't make the decision saying that shaman is the term we use. It's the term that anthropologists have used for the last 50 or so years to describe and categorize these altered states of consciousness and these individuals that use these techniques in order to reach these altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, you could say Irish witch doctor. You could say who knows exactly what it is.
Well, yeah, and then there's medicine men as well, and there's some distinction between that. And that's the thing that makes it complicated, is especially in our attention span lessening era, is most people only watch it's only 60% of people will watch a video past 30 seconds, and so 40% of people gone.
Yeah,
and then only 20% finish a video. And so what can you say in such a brief window to kind of encompass these terms like Celtic and shaman? It's almost impossible. And I think that's why it's so important that people watch entirety of videos.
Yes.
Because we can't give you 30 seconds of what both of these things mean.
And in shamanism itself, I even think now, what is shamanism? I know there is an idea of what it is. There's a light version, I think, but then I think what we now know as the modern idea, which is kind of blended in with New Age spirituality, is different to what would be traditional shamanism, and that would be of a lot of indigenous cultures around the world, earth-based cultures, where which comes basically, shamanism would really come from animism, and I think a lot of people probably may not know that, or may know a lot about it, that animism, that everything has a spirit, that everything is alive, and through that then came practices of how to work with those spirits, whether it's the spirits of the land or the weather or the stones. And shamanism is really about, what I've been taught anyway, on a more deeper level, is working, going basically into a controlled trance. As scary as that might sound, and the idea of possession, it actually is in a controlled trance to work with the spirits on behalf of your community. You know, it's about serving your community, and it's not a glamorous job. And I suppose we talk about Celtic shamanism, or maybe I can only speak for Ireland. You know, we have aspects of that. Would they have called it shamanism? Probably not. And you know, with the idea of druidism, especially here and in Britain, it is aspect. We're all probably doing the same thing around the world. You know, indigenous cultures around the world, we all, I would more imagine, were worshipping the elements. That idea coming from animism. So that what we're really trying to piece together, maybe remember, especially in Ireland and in Britain, of that idea of, probably across the globe, what is our heritage, you know, especially those aspects of shamanism. You know, what do we have here? And we know some of it, we don't know all of it, and it's trying to maybe reclaim that, rejuvenate it, to reinvent it in a way, but in a way that's not taken from other cultures. Or it's a hard one, because what is it? And I know people even in Ireland now will claim that title, but it's probably, to answer then finally, would be an Irish themed shamanism, that Irish perspective on shamanism. That would be again more the Celtic pantheon, the Irish pantheon of gods. Maybe it would be integrated in the Irish language, into prayer, some more traditional folk wisdom or rituals would probably what we now would grasp of as Celtic shamanism.
Now, with Celtic shamanism, my first thought was actually like, well, who would be the Celtic shamans? To me, the Celtic shaman would be the druid.
Yes.
That's who fulfilled that role.
Absolutely. And again, same with what exactly does druid mean? It can mean a lot of different things. So there's no one right or wrong answer, and no one term that encapsulates everything. It's just...
Well, and as we discussed with the druids as well, in theory there was 3 different types of druids, and the actual druid probably wouldn't have been the one that was fulfilling the shamanic role.
No, that would be the OV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The druid was a little bit more on the political side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I find interesting about this term shaman, and the people who fulfilled this role, no matter what it was called in whatever culture, whoever was fulfilling this role of shaman, it's almost uniform. Every tribal culture, every indigenous culture, every pagan culture had someone that fulfilled this role. It would have just been called something different.
Yeah. And if you look at all the different cultures, when they tap into that spirituality and the other world, there's so many similarities that you're like, okay, there has to be something to it.
Yeah. Well, if my personal journey exploring shamanism is, I've now learned in several continents now in the world different techniques of shamanism, but it all comes together. Like, I've been in the jungles of Ecuador, I've been in the mountains and fjords of Norway, I've been in the forest of Estonia, in North America, learning these different techniques, and from different teachers, from different traditions, from different tribes, and yet somehow they're all coming together and still informing this connection to the spirit world. And I think that's really beautiful, is that at one point in our global history, everyone through different language and songs was tapping into the spirit world and communicating with it. And that's really powerful.
I definitely, at the beginning, found connection with spirit and spirituality definitely through the practice of the East. So that's whether Buddhism, Hinduism, and that really benefited me at the time. And it got me focused a bit, and maybe especially because they have, all their practices are documented, so you can really read about and their stories, and I really got something out of that. But then as I progressed with that, and I started delving into, especially with the work I was doing with my son and speaking Irish, that connection started to build, and maybe that idea of maybe, symbolically coming home. Okay, what were we doing here, or how can I bring that home? And that is why, thankfully, it was like shamanism came to me a good few years ago, and I thinking, oh, this is really interesting, and then I kind of fell away from that. It might have been probably actually before I kind of looked to the East, and I didn't know what to do with that, and that kind of faded away. And then I came, and so it was always there, and I get it as well. Even from, I think when I was younger, I definitely, probably like a lot of children, but I really wanted to believe in magic and the other world, and not that I was deeply brought up in that, but it is a part of Irish culture. It is there, and you'd learn the different stories. So I definitely always really longed to, I wish that was real. And then of course, as you grow up, that starts to dissipate, and you stop believing that, and becomes every, teenage years and apathy for the world. But now I think shamanism have given me it's a way into spirituality that can be not so heavy. It can be light and also fun and have the crack and wildness. Probably, again, maybe a lot of spirituality I know, and especially from the perspective of Ireland and the Catholic Church, a connection to God meant purity. And obviously there's a time for purification and cleansing ourselves, but it's on the knife edge with like original sin and whatnot, isn't it? And that just of permanent guilt and shame for your whole life. And I think shamanism, again, knowing it's one of the oldest, it's not a religion, but oldest practices or connection to spirit in the world, and okay, what were most of us doing if you go back far enough? Some aspect of shamanism, some aspect of worshipping the elements. So I've definitely enjoyed, again, that reconnection to wildness again, that actually wildness isn't something to be feared.
As we haven't had the conversation with Connor as the point of recording this, but I know he uses mantras, I believe from the Hindu,
Okay.
to inspire his practice as an Irish shamanic practitioner. And so he's been influenced by other cultures, and he has to be, because there's no book in Ireland that says how to be a Celtic shaman.
Yeah.
There's no guidepost. Now, I know he probably sings in Gaelic and Irish as well. He incorporates the language, he incorporates the land, the elements of the land, but he has to learn from these other cultures in order to fill in the blanks. And it's been the same thing with me as I pursue this idea of Norse shamanism. Is, we might have some of the text, we might have some of the artifacts, but the actual rituals, the techniques, the specific songs, we don't know them. And so we have to look at what other cultures have and see how the Norse would have used these things as well.
Hinduism, it's great. It's part of that same Proto-Indo-European family.
Yeah.
So Hinduism has been around for thousands of years, and it's changed and evolved, but it hasn't been lost and had to be rediscovered. So when we're talking Celtic and Norse, when there are so many gaps, it only makes sense to try to fill those gaps with some commonalities between other cultures.
Well, I remember when I was in Glastonbury and I went to I think it was the Kirtan, which is a Hare Krishna thing, is they just sing songs to Hare Krishna and stuff like that. And when I look at the language is not something I connect with, like the actual language of the Hindu prayers.
Mm-mm.
But when you actually look at the translation, it really is just like, thank you, Father Sky, thank you, Mother Earth, thank you for love, thank you for life. It's like, these are universal prayers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you can translate that into English, you can translate that into Scandinavian, Old Norse, and it's going to sound really beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's gratitude for the primal forces, for those basic forces of our life. And that's what the Hindus are praying to, that's what the Buddhists are praying to, what the Norse are praying to, the South American. And I think that's what shamanism is trying to connect with.
It makes sense to me, and I think it makes sense. I even see it with my son. It makes sense to a child if you start to very simply explain it. Even the idea of offerings. I think you're halfway on a good track if it makes sense to a child.
What do you usually give for offerings?
So I like, first of all, I think we can have notions of what offerings, especially for different traditions. So you'll hear tobacco or alcohol or whatever. But what I've been taught, especially, is what is something that would be kind of like a sacrifice to you, or what's important to you. So if I really enjoy porridge. So porridge oats and obviously, and that's something that also is edible for wild animals as well. So porridge is something that I have a connection with, and it was something that I was definitely recommended by some of my friends and teachers of. That's a good offering to give, and it's something that can be native to the land. But the word you'd have from, I don't know if you've heard of the Om alphabet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What is great about it's really old, and because of that, the name or the sound that is associated with what it's called is hua.
So that's why, and we would call her grandmother. So it'd be Shan Water. Shan Water is grandmother Oscuelga. So Shan Water Hua, or you could say, but and especially a lot of these sacred sites, it's just nice to stop. Especially there's usually you will find a sacred tree of some description, but usually a hawthorn that is seen as like a guardian of these places. So it's maybe nice, like you're going to visit anywhere, a new place, someone's house. It's nice to come with a gift and to introduce yourself. So that's all. Maybe you can do that. Follow me after this, but literally just an introduction of who you are, maybe why you're here, and maybe seeking permission. So that's what I'm doing. So this is a tincture I've made. Only made it for the first time last year, but it's made from, it's a tincture of the hawthorn, of the hua. So you're starting in when the flowers blossom in around this time, and then that's submerged in I got poachine, so it's quite strong, not just your normal alcohol, but quite strong, 70% alcohol, and that's submerged in that for a good few months until we come to sowing time a little bit after that, when the berries come out. Then they're put in the same mixture, and then that's left until we're talking January, February, and this is the tincture. So I think that's probably something quite nice to give as an offering, because it's a part of her. But that's what this is. So I'll let you just try some as well.
Connor's interview was just over an hour long, and there is a lot of what he said I was not able to fit into just one video, even 2 other videos. So if you're interested in seeing Connor's full, unabridged interview, I will have it up for some of my supporters on Patreon and YouTube members. So not only will you be assisting this channel with a monthly donation on Patreon and YouTube supporters, you're also going to be receiving some pretty cool extras along with it. And honestly, after spending some time with Connor, I could listen to him talk all day. So go get yourself some of the Irish wisdom and support this channel in the process.
What would you say would be the Irish way to connect with shamanism?
It would be a way to connect with shamanism, yeah, specifically in art. I think in practical would be probably something, maybe using Irish word, Irish language in like opening of directions or something like that. I think that's something that you could do that is accessible, and is a nice, easy thing to do, and it may be in a ceremonial aspect or a prayer. Learning a song can be a really powerful way. Their songs, especially, and language, are carriers of culture. So that can be a beautiful way. Definitely maybe opening of directions, but if you can, then maybe learn even a little song can be, especially maybe if you have ancestry here as well. All our prayers can be so different and unique, isn't it? Or even our opening up a space or calling directions, of finding that little piece of, I really like that. Because we're lucky, there are prayers even out there. And some of them more animistic than maybe Christian, if you kind of go digging enough. Even a lot of Christian, a lot of monks would have had a massive veneration for nature.
I know Kevin and myself both wish we could have stayed and talked to Connor for the rest of the day. However, we did eventually need to hit the road once again and say goodbye to our new friend. Tomorrow we head into Dublin to share with you a look into the ancient artifacts of Ireland's past, and we're also going to be sharing with you the history of Vikings and their hand in founding the largest city in Ireland still today. So be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the rest of this adventure across ancient Ireland, and also be sure to go back and check out all previous episodes you may have missed in the series so far.